Today's story is called Daniel and the Lion's Den. This is Daniel. Daniel was a young boy and he loved God very much. He was a Jewish boy and he kept all of the laws and he did all of the things that God wanted him to do. Now, one day, Daniel was moved to a new town called Babylon. And in Babylon, he was there for many, many years. Daniel was there when there were lots of different kings, all the way until there was a king called King Darius. Now, King Darius got to know Daniel and he liked Daniel very, very much. So Daniel was actually one of the people who was a helper in the kingdom, in the courts. And there were some other courtsmen who did the same sort of job as Daniel, but they weren't as good at it as Daniel. And that's because they weren't as careful to always make the right choices. Sometimes they made choices to break love rather than to show love. But Daniel always made choices to show love and to show that he was making the best decisions and the best choices. And he was very wise. Now, King Darius liked Daniel very much and he wanted to put Daniel in charge of the kingdom and all of the things that happened. And so he gave Daniel this great honour, and Daniel could not believe how lucky he was. All he was doing was being a good person and showing love, and now he'd been chosen for this very special job. Now, the other courtsmen were very unhappy with Daniel. They were very cross and they were very, very jealous. So they had to think up of a plan. How could they get rid of Daniel? Now Daniel went off back home to talk to God as he always did. Daniel would pray 3 times a day. He'd pray to God, he'd pray 3 times a day. 1, 2, 3. And he'd always have his window open so that people could see what he was doing. Now, the courtsmen came to see the king and they had an idea. They said to the king, "Can we make a new law? The new law is that all of the people in the land must only pray to you, because you, King Darius, are the most important person in the land." King Darius quite liked this idea and he knew that he was an important king and he thought it would be a good idea to make sure that all the people were doing the right thing and praying to him. And so the law was written and King Darius had to sign the law to say that this was going to be a new law and all the people in the land had to follow it. Okay, so this was all part of the courtsman's plan. So King Darius went off on his way. Remember, Daniel was busy praying to God when all of the courtsmen came to his house and they saw Daniel bowed down on his knees praying to God. Oh my goodness, they had caught Daniel doing the very one thing that the new law had said he was not allowed to do. Quickly, they told Daniel that they had caught him breaking the law and they hurried back to tell the king. Now, King Darius was very, very upset. He was very worried because he knew that the punishment for breaking the law would be to be put into the lion's den. Now, if you got put into the lion's den, you would make very, very nice food for those lions. Those lions were always hungry. And so King Darius knew that this is what had to happen to poor old Daniel. So King Darius brought Daniel to him and he said, "Daniel, I am so sorry. I have written in the law that if anybody is caught praying to another person, not me, to a different god, then they will be thrown in the mouths of lions. Now, Daniel understood that King Darius had no choice. But remember, Daniel loved God very much. And of course, God loved Daniel. And God promised that he was going to look after Daniel and that his superpower would keep him safe. And so Daniel said, I will be kept safe by the Lord my God. I trust in him. And so King Darius said, I hope that your God can save you, Daniel. And so it happened. Daniel got put into the lion's den. And Daniel was there all night long. Here we go, there's those courtsmen who had shown that broken love to play a trick on Daniel. They were watching by to see what happened next. King Darius left and Daniel was shut in with the lions for the whole night. King Darius went back and I'm not sure he could sleep that night. He was so worried about his servant Daniel and whether he would be safe. And then something very special happened whilst Daniel was in that lion's den. Along came one of the Lord's angels, and with the power that God had given to the angel closed all of the lions' mouths. And so none of the lions felt hungry and wanted to eat Daniel. They were all calm and kind and friendly to Daniel because the angel of the Lord had closed their mouths and made them feel calm. Wow, that was God's superpower coming to work and to keep Daniel safe from the lions. The next day, King Darius got up and he rushed to find Daniel. And he called to Daniel. He said, Daniel, Daniel, has your Lord been faithful to you? Has he kept you alive? And then Daniel came out of the den and he told King Darius all about what had happened and how the angel had closed the lions' mouths and that God had kept him safe and that Daniel was looked after by the power of God and that God had kept his promise to be near him and to look after him always. I wonder if there's something that we need God to help us with today. Maybe there's something that we could ask God's superpower, the Holy Spirit, to come and help with in our life today.